Hey there, friends. It's Angela. I just wanted to do a quick check-in with you. I struggled a little bit with how to do this episode and what to talk about because obviously I don't know the answers. No one does. This is unprecedented. We've never been here before as a society. But I did want to address what's happening and hopefully bring some comfort to those of you who are anxious and stressed about all the uncertainty. One thing that I know you'll be able to count on is this podcast. Other than this episode, we're going to continue on our regular Sunday schedule each week. My hope was to stick to the normal topics, but I'm finding that every day is bringing so many changes that it's impossible to predict if and when you'll be able to put any of that stuff into practice. And I always want to speak to you about things that are timely and relevant for you to use right now. So I made the decision to scrap all the planned episodes for the rest of the season, and I'm just taking this week by week based on whatever I feel is most pressing to address given the state of the world at that moment. So I might show up with a motivational message and some short, simple encouragement. It might be an episode sort of like this one, or maybe with some tools to support you in teaching remotely. The topic and the tone will depend on whatever I feel is most urgently needed and what I think is most important for teachers to be focusing on at the time. Just know that I'm monitoring things really closely and staying super connected with my teacher communities online to make sure that I'm serving you in a way that's helpful. I just know that basically everything in real life is being canceled or postponed right now, so I don't want to do the same thing for online stuff. Everything I do online will remain constant and consistent. And you can count on that in the weeks to come. I'll be honest that I haven't been feeling super strong emotionally over these last couple days, and I also worry about giving you advice that later proves to be a really bad idea in light of new circumstances. But I also know that if I wait to address this until I know all the answers, then I'll never be able to do it. So let me share with you a few of the things that I do know for sure. The first thing I want you to remember is that it is okay to sit in the anxiety sometimes and to allow yourself and others to be off kilter. If you're having a tough time focusing right now on any topic besides coronavirus, you're probably finding that most of the articles and discussions about it are creating more fear and more uncertainty. And that can lead to a really vicious circle where I've been caught up in it myself, where you need to stay away from the discussions to protect your mental state, but you also desperately want to know what's going on, and you want to feel not alone in your fear. There's something really reassuring about checking into Twitter or Facebook and seeing other people voice the same concerns that you have. It can be a little addictive when you feel like you can't focus on anything else. So that's been tough for me lately. I'm a systems thinker and I'm a big picture person. So when the news of this first broke back several weeks ago, my mind started spiraling and immediately going to the domino effect of everything that's going to happen to various industries and the way this will disrupt our daily lives and our economy for a really long time to come. And right now, all I can do is anticipate a whole lot of problems. I don't have a lot of solutions. And that leaves me feeling sort of helpless and pretty de-energized at times. So I share all of that because I know a lot of you have that same personality type. You are planners. You manage your anxiety by trying to control things, trying to be proactive, think about all the things that could go wrong and head them off at the pass. So if that's you, you're so not alone with that. I am feeling exactly as you do. And this is a new level of challenge. When we learn how to manage our anxiety, manage our need to plan and control things through a situation like this, anything that crops up after that feels much more manageable, right? So we're sort of building our capacity for tolerating uncertainty. And that's really important because, I'll speak for myself here. I live a very comfortable life. And being uncomfortable and having my way of life disrupted is scary to me. This is teaching me to go with the flow and to not have to have things a certain way and to be okay with not knowing. And those are all such important life skills. Those are things that will carry me far and get me through a lot of hard times. If I am okay with uncertainty and I learn how to just stay present in the moment and trust that I will know the next right thing to do in any given moment, I mean, that's powerful. And it's something that I've been working on for years, but it's a long journey to get myself there. And this is an opportunity to work on that some more. And also be really gentle with myself. Allow myself to be off kilter. It's normal and understandable to be anxious right now or to be fearful. It's a natural human reaction. And if you're feeling those uncomfortable feelings, it's okay to feel that. Be gentle with yourself. Give yourself grace. That's advice that you've heard me say over and over in many different contexts. So if you've already been practicing it, you're going to be extra prepared for what's needed in the coming weeks, because we definitely need more of that. Don't expect yourself to feel like you normally do, because your world is not functioning as it normally does. So I try to remind myself daily, it's okay to be off kilter. It's okay to feel anything that I'm feeling. The second thing that I know for sure is that we need rest in order to stay healthy. And expecting ourselves to maintain normal productivity levels is not realistic. Most people, and I'll speak specifically to teachers here, are pretty exhausted and overwhelmed by all the responsibilities on their plate when we're not in a global pandemic. That's our normal state of being, right? Busy, under-rested, not getting enough sleep, tired, overwhelmed. Those are pretty typical states of being for many of us. And you know how I feel about that, and how strongly I believe that as a society, we desperately need to rethink this work, hustle, produce culture. And my hope is that this forced stopping place, this unprecedented period of time in which the world shuts down and we have no choice but to go inward, both physically and mentally, my hope is that this can actually be a tremendous time of healing. Rather than try to accomplish everything we've been accomplishing at the same rate as always, what if we use this time to rest, to disconnect from the outside world and reconnect with ourselves? What if we use this time to do nothing with our children? What if we let them play? What if we let them have unstructured time to create and imagine and use however they feel like using it? What if we give them and ourselves time for sleep and rest, downtime, relaxation? What if we stop pushing ourselves and our kids 24/7 and keep trying to accomplish more and be the best and get things done, and instead can just have some time to be together for a while? What if we read and play games and cook and take naps and talk and just be? Now, I acknowledge that not every person's home is one of refuge and peace. The home can actually be the place where folks feel the least safe and the least contented. And my heart aches at that fact, because I want every person impacted by this pandemic to have a little bit of peace and some time to rest. To whatever extent is in our power, allow ourselves to rest. Because if we're prioritizing health right now in our culture, we're beginning to finally act as if our health is more important than anything else, then we need to realize that rest is essential to good health. If we're scrambling to teach kids online with no real preparation or resources for that, that just creates more stress and uncertainty for teachers and kids and families. When we're stressed, our immune system weakens. We're less able to fight off infections. So if the goal for our society right now is to stay healthy, then keeping our anxiety levels down and not trying to force ourselves to work as if things were normal is absolutely critical. Things are not normal right now. We cannot put our normal expectations on ourselves or on our schools and our kids. It's my hope that this pandemic will disrupt the harmful testing culture in our schools and put the proper priorities in place within our systems, even if it's temporarily. Now, I'm not an expert on teaching remotely, so I'm not going to say too much about that, except that if your school makes an abrupt switch in that direction, where you're not used to teaching in that way, you've not been giving training, you don't have the resources, kids aren't set up with the device and the access that they need, know that you are not going to be able to teach kids the same way that you were planning to. And you should not expect the same outcomes as if there were no pandemic that has kids stressed and fearful and without their teacher and school and all these other support systems in place that would help them learn effectively. Many of our older students will be responsible for babysitting their younger siblings. They're taking over a lot of home responsibilities. They can't sit there and complete 6 hours of classwork and then what would have been homework on top of that. And parents are in the same boat. They're either still going to work, which means the kids don't have parents to help with their classwork, or they're trying to work from home, which means they can't teach their kids. They're working. Parents are not equipped to homeschool for a month. We can't shift the burden onto families to oversee hours of assignments for their children every day. And plus, they're unfocused and panicky and worrying about their health and their lost income and access to basic supplies. Health and survival is our family's priorities right now. That's what our students' families are focusing on, and that's what they should be focusing on. So let's not overwhelm teachers or kids or families with too much schoolwork right now. We've got to fight to keep this simple. This is a national emergency, so schooling expectations have to be adjusted. The goal cannot be to soldier on and prepare kids for standardized testing as if their whole world isn't currently upside down. Advocate for yourself. Advocate for your community and your students. Let's be human-centered for once, instead of data-centered. Testing should be the last thing on anyone's mind. I follow a number of college instructors on Twitter who are well-versed in the amount of work that it takes to create an effective online learning program. And repeatedly, I have seen them advising K-12 teachers to simplify, especially for folks who are new to this. I don't care what your district tells you, you have to know the truth for yourself, which is that keeping things as simple as possible right now is key. We don't have to try to figure out fancy tools and interactive systems right this second. Ask yourself, what would it look like if it were easy? Pick the option that is going to reduce the stress for you and your kids. We don't need anybody stressed out and exhausted and with weakened immune systems right now. We need folks healthy and rested and strong. So I don't know how much control you're going to have over any of these things in the coming weeks, but I do know that this will be an important mindset for all of us. Just as you cannot internalize pressure from your school or your district in terms of student achievement on a normal day, you certainly cannot afford to do so during a pandemic. Look for simple solutions. Give kids grace. You don't know what's going on in their home right now, what kind of conditions these kids are trying to learn in from home. So keep your expectations realistic and focused on making sure that families are healthy and have the things they need to get through this. The schoolwork and the testing has to be the last priority. And just in our tone and communication with them and the way that we interact with them, we can convey that, even if we are required by districts to give a certain level of work or to teach online in a certain way. Your tone and your word choice and the way you interact with them can convey to kids and families that things are okay and you're willing to work with them and we're going to get through this the best that we can. And I think that's probably the most important thing that you can do is just try to be reassuring with them. The third thing that I know for sure is that this is an opportunity to rethink your obligations and how your time is spent, and to decide what you want life to look like in the new normal. Often teachers feel like everything in their lives is important and essential, and there's nothing they can cut out of their day. It is amazing how a major traumatic event like this can clarify for us just how many of those things that we thought had to happen and we had to participate in actually don't need to happen at all. This time is an opportunity to rethink your schedule and obligations. I encourage you to observe how these changes impact you over the coming weeks. When opportunities crop up again later, think carefully about whether you want to recommit. There may be activities that were postponed that you may decide you don't want to participate now after all. This global disruption to our daily lives is the perfect opportunity to rethink this stuff. Say no to the things that you've only been doing out of obligation. This could be a chance to wipe the slate clean. Everything about the way we normally do life is changing right now, so you can rethink your entire approach. You kind of have no choice right now anyway, right? Why not decide what you actually care about and what you want to use your time for, what you want to use your energy for in the future? And if you find yourself going sort of bonkers with all of the unstructured time at home, that could be a good indication that some rethinking is really necessary. I know this won't apply to everyone. Some of you are actually doing more now because you're doing childcare around the clock, or you have other things that are taking up your time that maybe weren't before when school was in session. But for those who find that being in the house and not being able to go out and do your normal activities is really uncomfortable, see if you can use this time to dig deeper within yourself. Many people use busyness as a way to avoid getting quiet with themselves. When you're still, you have to deal with stuff from your past that you haven't wanted to face, or aspects of yourself that you don't like. It's easier to stay busy than to self-examine. So if you find yourself uncomfortable in the quiet and the stillness, I encourage you to sit with that, because that's where the growth is. Think about how you want to be using your time. If you end up with an extended school break or more time in the house than you've planned on, what would you like to do with that time? And again, the goal here is not to expect ourselves to work at the optimum level of productivity. Do not attempt to clean out your garage and do 500 other household tasks in 3 days. Pace yourself. Prioritize rest and health. And by rest and health, I mean your physical health, your mental health, your emotional health, and your spiritual health. Maybe choose just one project that you didn't think you'd have time to do until summer that you maybe want to do right now. Maybe you've been wanting to write or paint or garden. Maybe you've been wanting to spend more time in nature. We're not prohibited from that as of now. This is about social distancing. So going for a walk in the woods or in a park could be okay and could do wonders for your mental and physical health if that's safe in your specific situation. Think of something that matters to you and that you've always wished you had more time for. Maybe this can be a time when you're able to finally start or finish something that you've always wanted to do. A fourth thing that I know for sure is that rugged individualism will not get us through a global pandemic. This is a time for us to unite in our local, online, and global communities. These are not days that we can get through alone. And that runs counter to the individualistic culture that permeates all of our dominant norms in America. We tend to have an every person for themselves kind of worldview, and it doesn't serve us in this kind of situation. This is a time when we need social systems and safety nets in place. We need every person to have access to free testing and treatment for this virus. We need mortgage and utility forgiveness so that folks who can't work don't lose their homes or go into bankruptcy. We need to have supports in place for folks who are already homeless and otherwise the least equipped to stay healthy right now. We need to make sure all of our kids are able to eat breakfast and lunch when schools are closed. All of these kinds of factors will impact how our country or any country handles the pandemic. It is more clear than ever that we cannot afford to only look out for our own selves or our own families, because when the disadvantaged don't have what we have, everyone in society is impacted. We're all connected. We're connected in ways that we often overlook and we don't see, but we are all in this together. And this tragedy can connect us together if we can think beyond ourselves. And that will go against our human nature. Our instincts are self-preservation. We have to be willing to think consciously and not just follow those base instincts. If I buy 10 baths of soap and my neighbors have none left to buy or they can't afford to stock up, well, that means they're not washing their hands, which can make me sick. The resources and protections that everyone else on the planet has right now impacts me. It's always been that way, but not always quite so obvious as it is right now. So it is my job and your job to be mindful about how all of us, humans, animals, our whole planet, are interdependent, and look deeper than our own needs to think about the larger impact of our choices. I've already seen such a beautiful coming together of communities. The way that I see educators supporting one another right now online is so heartwarming. I've seen so many ed tech companies make their products free for schools that are closed during this time. I've seen teachers sharing lesson ideas and tools they're going to use. And I've seen folks locally step up to help one another out in ways that maybe weren't on our radar before this hit. So we've got to really think about moving away from this individualistic kind of society. Look out for one another. Come together, unite, and make sure that everyone has the resources that they need. The final thing that I know for sure is that fear is contagious. and it spreads even faster than a virus. Our own mental health is paramount right now. When we are acting from a place of fear, we tend to make rash and irrational choices. And that can be catastrophic when the stakes are high like they are right now. We each need to do whatever it takes to stay strong and look out for ourselves and our loved ones and our communities. It's okay to panic and to spiral into a dark place sometimes, but we can't stay in that place. And I'm talking to myself here as much as I'm talking to you. Other people are counting on us to hold it together and make responsible decisions and use this time wisely. There will be some terrible and catastrophic effects from the coronavirus, but I also believe that we can come out of this with new understandings of ourselves and how our society functions. This is an opportunity to reimagine systems. The status quo has been completely turned on its head, and that means that when things go right side up again, they will look different. We have the power to make choices about what this new normal will look like for our personal lives, for our families, for our schools, for our government, for our society. I know that everything you're facing can feel overwhelming and scary, but you can do this. It's not going to be easy. It's going to be worth it.